Hey guys, welcome to the Blue Collar Business Podcast, where we discuss the realest, rawest, most relevant stories and strategies behind building every corner of a blue collar business. I'm your host, Cy Kirby, and I want to help you in what it took me, trial and error, and a whole lot of money to learn. The information that no one in this industry is willing to share. Whether you're under that shade tree or have your hard hat on, let's expand your toolbox. Super excited to have Daniel Ellis joining us today. He is the Senior Vice President of the Civil Division of Crafton Toll. He has many notes worth making here. Just a small pause here. Board member and Senior Vice President, Chairman for the City of Bella Vista Planning Commission. Do a lot of duties with Lowell in the City of Lowell, and you're on the on-call engineer with them. Board member for the Arkansas Society of Professional Engineers. Community board member for Sterling Bank, Northwest Arkansas, and member of the Academy of Civil Engineers at Missouri University of Science and Technology. Do you have any time, sir?
Yeah. I got
Number one, thank you again for joining me. Little brief history for everybody. I met Mr. Ellis in a very awkward, pretentious job. I was 3-4 years into this game. That was my first larger scale project, and it was way too much for me to bite off and chew. I stuck it out. Not many do, but I got to learn the hard way and got some major education lessons from Mr. Ellis. And man, they are so vital for me 5 years later. And that's kind of how we met. And of course, through this beautiful hillside that we're sitting here in Rogers, and it's called the Pinnacle area. Mr. Ellis has literally had his hand in it since 2002 from across the highway. The interstate runs right through here. This is more of the uptown part of town, you would say. Pinnacle Heights, the amphitheater, Walmart amphitheater, all the Hunt Towers, the parking garages, Pinnacle Heights, if I didn't mention that. The restaurant row that come in just below it all, Topgolf. Literally. I love the time lapse, the one thing that you guys put out, and we may be able to B-roll that right here. There was a time lapse of this Pinnacle hillside and back and forth. But to be a part of that scenario of every project was really cool. Although I wasn't the main civil contractor, etc., but I was still involved. But seriously, thank you so much for joining us. Furthermore, before I get you off into too deep, you can find all of our information at the bluecollarbusinesspodcast.com. And Daniel, LinkedIn would be the best.
Facebook and LinkedIn.
Facebook and LinkedIn, you can find Mr. Ellis on to ask a few questions if that intrigues you. Number one point, I'm going to start with you very quickly. You have had your hand in some of those projects I just named. I wish folks could have an understanding of how large of a civil development. I mean, Pinnacle Heights, as we're sitting here across the road, has literally 3 projects in one, with the road projects outside of it, the road projects within it, plus the private. Talk about, number one, what you do at Crafton Toll, but managing those size of projects.
Oh, gosh. Anymore, Crafton Toll is more about people management and business management and that kind of stuff. But for the vast majority of my career, it was project management and civil engineering design, and going out and just working with contractors, working with the folks at the city to get projects designed, permitted, and constructed. And that's the nature of what civil engineering really is. And it's, people like to think it's easy, but it's really not.
I will have your back there, sir.
Yeah. Because if you think about it, you have, people come to you with, I have an idea, and they need you to figure out how to make this idea work. And there's so many parts and pieces to it. You've got to have a good understanding of the code that you have to follow, whichever municipality you're in, whether it's Rogers or Fayetteville or Springdale or Bentonville.
Which are completely, one can be European to North American sometimes, how different they are.
Yeah, they all have their own different ways that they want to see development in their cities. And so you've got to have a really good understanding of that. Plus, there's just some things about constructability that you really have to have a firm grasp of. It's not easy to do what you guys do, and a lot of engineers don't realize that just because they say you can lay a pipe at 0.4% or at 0.5% doesn't necessarily mean that you can actually do it in the field because of one reason or another.
Right.
And also, there's an education process with your clients or whoever you're working with that, things happen I like to tell people that most days my magic 8-ball does not work. I can't see what everything in the ground is. Neither can you.
No, sir.
And
although we try.
But we can't predict everything that's going to happen. So there's got to be the ability to manage those expectations that things are going to come up that are going to affect time
at the client level and the contractor level,
yes.
Because you're in between us.
You're in between, exactly. And you have people who are the interest clock is running like crazy, and then we have guys that need to cover their expenses, and this is kind of the way that it is.
We sell a product of time.
Yes.
And so do I in a lot of senses. A lot of folks, a lot of different engineering firms, a lot of different contractors, but what I like to sell folks and what I can speak for on Crafton Toll and Daniel Ellis projects, that time is of the essence.
Yep.
And just like you're saying, and what I was trying to get at there is, I've been on several projects that you're so interlocked with the ownership group and, mainly their point of contact for when things hit the fan, but you're also available to a contractor like myself. No, I don't have 50 years in the game, so I'm still going to have questions from time to time. And you're so willing to take the time and talk about those said subjects because the time management that I have, like you said, I've got expenses to cover. Those machines out there are incredibly expensive. And if I don't get timely responses, and I wanted to point this out, the connotation in the relationship between Mr. Ellis and myself, we can't work without each other. I put the pipe in, but I can't do anything without a set of drawings and what to do with said pipe. So that's the major working relationship that we've always had it for anybody that doesn't quite understand the civil connection, etc. But some of these large projects, 40, 60, 80 million, they can get to be very, very large very quickly. How do you manage 5 or 6, 7 different types of ownership? Sometimes you're dealing with a board of ownership and then deal with the contract. How do you go through that day to day? I know it's maybe a little tougher question.
No, it isn't, because whether the project is 1 acre in size or 100 acres in size, the key to success is effective communication and attention to detail. If you have those two things, your project will be successful. If you do not, it will not be successful.
I couldn't agree more.
That's what the whole nature of it is. And you kind of hit on it, but I kind of elaborate this to everybody I talk to. Text messages and emails is not effective communication.
Talk about it.
You have to get out and look at it. You have to meet face to face. You've got to take the paper drawings and lay them on the hood of the truck and talk through it. I can't tell you how many people that I come up to them. I say, well, where's your plans at? And they pull up a little iPad and they go, right here. And I'm like, you can't really see the whole picture. And especially on a big project, you have to be able to see the whole picture. So as much as the new generation doesn't like to hear it, the old school way is still the best way, in my opinion, which is face-to-face meetings over a set of paper plans on the job site.
100%. I think, man, that is such a great point, because there's so much talk even here on this podcast about being the next generation. And, I've referenced on this podcast several times to there's an old set of ways folks have already kind of made their money. Say, a 50, 60-year-old dirt contractor, he's probably already made his money. He's not going to be going and spending $500,000 million and going off into this GPS and all this technology innovation because he's a little bit scared of it. So that's exactly the same concept there. But speaking any certain project from the management skill side of it that you would want to speak on, that you have some remembrance of,
Sure.
that you could show maybe an example of. I can tell you one time from personal experience with Mr. Ellis in one of our first jobs. I'm a reference to it again. He had to come out there and get his box of crayons and draw on his set of prints what I needed to do, because I couldn't understand the jargon and the lingo, and I wasn't a successful commercial contractor or utility contractor. I had a bunch of utility experience from the live municipality sense, and I had done contractored work. But here I am, big boy in it, doing my own. I needed to call him. It was a specific said subject, and he come out there, threw those open, and said, "Si, if you put this pipe here and put this pipe here, everything will be a-okay." And 6 years later now, it's a-okay. But any other projects you can remember?
We can talk about Mercy Hospital, for instance, when we did the bed tower expansion on that phase 2. Massive project, a very, very complex project. And it really was, meeting after meeting after meeting, getting ready to go to construction and just kind of trying to talk through all the issues. But, especially when you're doing an expansion project or you're having to add on, you have to engineer as you go. And everybody talks about design build. This time, you're designing as you're building.
A lot of times.
Yeah. And so it's, we didn't know where everything was at out there that had been done the first time. We knew about where it was at. And
right.
We tried to do the best investigations we could. And even as the engineer of the first project, I didn't know where everything was at for the expansion. So I traded my dress shoes for my work boots when construction started. And we were on site every week working through what's the next steps. And McCarthy was the CM on that project, and they had a guy out there. He was a civil engineer. His sole job was just to keep track of all the different things that came up on the site.
Wow.
So when I came out there, we could talk about through them and figure out what changes needed to be made, and get it drawn up in the office and back out to the field so it could get done.
Weekly.
His
job was to provide you nothing but with a set of list of, hey, this can't go because, HVAC guy and this guy or whatever the case may be. But wow.
Yeah. And that one was really critical because we were trying to connect 6 different floors. And believe it or not, when you're standing up structural steel, it's not exactly the same floor to floor. It's close, but it's not close enough when it comes time to attach to it with another phase. We were surveying all the way up that building, coordinating structural steel as it was being attached to the building to make sure the columns for the first floor were the right columns and the right length for the first floor as they were for the second, third, fourth, and so on. So, all that coordination had to happen. And if you just saw all of our files, surveying files of just going out and resurveying stuff and trying to coordinate all of that. But it all came back to as the project man. And I was a vice president when we did that, or I was a senior vice president when we did that. But it was still in the field, looking at it, getting dirty, getting out of the office.
Did you enjoy that?
I loved it.
Did you?
Oh yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, I'll never forget. One of my mentors, Tom Hopper, he's retired now. He always would say to me, "Have you been out in the field and looked at it?" It was kind of his philosophy is, did you go look at it? Have you gone to talk to people about it? And it's a lot of engineers. I looked at it on Google Maps or looked at it on Street View. I was like, well, that's not quite the same.
I can't tell you. I deal with quite a few engineering firms, obviously, as being a utility and earthwork contractor. I can't tell you how frustrating it is to go back and forth instead of, and literally offer my time up and go, hey, I will meet you. You tell me when you want to be there, whatever the set issue is, because for me, it's just eating me alive.
Yep.
And now that money is twice as expensive as what it was, interest rates and everything else, it's just time is You cannot waste time on a project.
Yep. And look, you and I figured this out a long time ago. That's one reason why I love working with you. 10 minutes in the field before the concrete gets poured is so much cheaper than after the concrete gets poured. And I'm sorry, I don't care how you want to put it. You know, everybody starts pointing the fingers, but, you know, a few $100s of time is nothing compared to tens of thousands of dollars of concrete.
Yes, sir.
And I can tell you right now, the owner's not going to pay for it. Been there, done that.
Yes, sir.
And whenever somebody says, well, I just don't have time to go out and look at it, I'm like, no, you have time because you have no idea what it will cost if you don't.
You don't have not the time to not go out there. You have got to. And honestly, when we get there and we speak on just general speaking terms, hey, look, this is what's happening. This is what I was trying to get across. This pipe is T-boning this pipe right here. I'm suggesting we vertical this. And hey, you installers and contractors, don't just wait on the engineer to provide you a freaking solution. You're a professional as well. You should be able to go, okay, hey, A, B, and C, this is my options. This one's going to cost a crap ton of money, but we can be done in 2 days. Or, hey, this option's this, going to drag out the project a little bit more, not going to cost as much, whatever it is, give it back to the engineer because we're both working, trying to keep the same person happy, which is our overall client and our ownership group. And normally for a contractor like myself, I would have to talk through the civil engineer, and that's normal speaking, general speaking terms of a project, of a civil project, that I would have to work through Daniel or any other engineer. And if you guys aren't working in a good communicative space, it's not going to end well for anyone, and especially the ownership. And just like Daniel referred to, is when you start ripping that manhole out because you're mad and you just got to get it out of there because you can't get no answers, and then it's $15,000 out of your pocket. Not the owner. Ain't nobody gonna pay you to do that. And then you're gonna stop project because you feel like something other. And trust me, don't do that either. That will get yourself in a lot of trouble too, unless you have written documentation, etc. Saying all that to say one thing is work with your engineer, provide solutions, even though they may not work. At least you're showing them, hey, look, in good faith and good effort, this is what I found. This is what I'm proposing. Hey, provide elevations as well. It usually helps to get answers quicker. And you give them, now, a lot of times Daniel may say, hey, Si, this is kind of looking wonky what you sent me. I'm going to send my survey team out, reshoot it, make sure before we give you this piece of paper, set of plans, profile, whatever, to go back into ground with, we're good to go. And that has been so effective. Projects that I've been a part of and your team. But moving, I referenced just a little bit ago about the GPS and innovation and how, sitting here as a 33-year-old business owner, it's crazy. 9 years we're starting this month, and I've learned a lot. Learn every single day, and that's why I've been loving these conversations. But we have really hedged into the GPS world. We're full top con from estimation and quantification all the way to iMachines in the field, basin rovers, etc. Not just for the utility sense, but talk me through a little bit of what you're seeing. You've been a part of this game a long time. Talk about a little bit of what this GPS innovation can help, not just us, the contractor and the engineer through a project, but the client as well, and the ownership group, if we just take a little bit extra time and gather just a little bit more information.
Yeah. Golly, that's such a big, big thing. I remember when I started, survey crews were a 3-man crew.
Wow.
Yeah. Three guys. You had to have 3 guys. And literally we would go out and do construction staking or whatever it was. I mean, you had to have 3 guys
to be efficient.
And we had to hand calc out every stake, what the elevation was going to be, where the location was, all these different things. And had to be hand.
I didn't even realize that.
Oh yeah.
Well, of course you did.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything was done by hand. We were using total stations at the time. I remember when they came out with robotic total stations. So that, when we had a staking crew go out, you have one guy on the gun, one guy on the rod, one guy pounding stakes. And then we got a robotic total station, so you didn't have to have a guy on the gun anymore, just a guy on the rod and a guy pounding stakes.
That's a big deal.
That's a big deal. And that's still how we do it, because it's not real safe to send a guy out by himself.
Right of ways, etc.
Yeah, number one. And, and it's better for if you got one guy holding the rod and one guy driving the stake, and they can switch off and on so one guy doesn't get fatigued.
You bet.
But, speaking of GPS now, we can take, because when we engineer that site as it is in the real world 3D model. So it's got all the line work in it. And, we send that out now. We used to be, we would be very selective in who we gave our CAD files to for construction.
Of course.
But now we give it to everybody. It's, kind of where the world's gone.
I literally wouldn't know what to do without the CAD file from starting now.
Yeah. And I mean, you guys take it and you can generate staking points as you're going just off of that 3D model that we build. And then I know you guys take it and kind of enhance it some when you guys get that from us. But the amount of time that is cut off of the staking time and getting things laid out in the field. I mean, it's a week, at least a week. Because I remember when somebody would call in for staking when I first started, we told them, all right, we'll be there in a week. And now we can do it in 24 hours. We can say, yep, we'll be out there. We'll be ready to stake that out for you in 24 hours, sometimes 48, depending on how busy we are. But it literally would take over a week to get that data ready.
That's insane.
And that was just 20 years ago. So in 2 decades, we've moved from 3 guys and everything being generated in the office and just taking days to get it ready to, it can be done literally in under a day if you want it to.
That's insane.
And, yeah. And now, I mean, it's crazy now, but drones, it's kind of gone to the next level. We can, when we want to, we can survey with a drone. You still have to come back and do some conventional surveying to, pick up some different features and get your battery tied down. But we can survey entire fields in under an hour with our drone. We did. It's interesting. We did. We were kind of just being engineers, a little bit nerdy. We kind of wanted to know what parking looked like on Black Friday in 23. So we went out at 9 a.m. on the Friday after Thanksgiving and flew the entire Promenade Mall area from New Hope all the way down past Bass Pro. And we did all of that in about 30 minutes. We flew that entire site. So I've got
that amount of traffic and data that it's got to pick up.
We know exactly how many parking stalls are sitting empty on Black Friday of 23 at the mall. And
that's insane.
All the shops around that. But we did that with our drone.
In which drone are you guys using? TopCon or what setups?
I cannot remember
specifically. Yeah.
I can tell you that it has a LiDAR camera on it. That the camera by itself is $35,000.
God almighty.
I can tell you that drone crashed one time and we had to file insurance claim. So it just dropped into a cow pasture. Like, wow, that sucks.
Out of nowhere.
Yeah. One of the
technology.
Yeah. One of the arms broke. It may not have been locked in. We don't know, but it just fell. And between the drone and the camera, there went $85,000 into the dirt.
Could you imagine that blue collar man sitting out there flying his pilot away and everything's GPS and going great, and then all of a sudden it just
yeah,
poor feller.
And speaking of blue collar, I mean, all of our surveyors are blue collars. None of them have college degrees. They all come to us with little to no experience, and they're out running. We use Trimble equipment.
Yeah.
So but we put them in a truck with all their equipment. And by the time it's all said and done, they're driving around with $250,000 to $300,000.
Yep.
And this, these are guys that are barely old enough to buy a beer, out surveying and doing whatever.
Multi-million-dollar projects.
Multi-million-dollar projects. And the guy that flies our drone is a blue-collar guy, too.
We love them blue-collar guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
The biggest boundary I have basically found in the blue-collar world is this conversation that we're talking about right now is how do we, a contractor who is very intimidated by the jargon of the engineering world because we feel it's already, undereducated when we enter in the room. So trying to have that conversation between more white collar, not just civil engineers. I'm talking bankers. I'm talking financing guys and etc. We jam up because we think we don't speak their language and etc. But these conversations are so important to show not just ownership and clientele and potential projects that it can be done the right way if you bring an engineer. Do you not find it so much, I wouldn't say easier is the word. I would basically a little bit more efficient when you have a civil engineer and a contractor working together pre-project moving forward, right?
Yes.
It is generally very easily it's a lot easier on the contractor. It's a lot easier on the engineer. We've talked about what we're doing before we go, and most generally how projects, just a quick brief in here, how this would work is a civil engineer would design it, then they would send it out normally for the ownership client or pass it on to a general contractor, and they would procure bids, etc., and you would bid back through that point. But you guys have heard me before in the civil capacity is that if you ownership mindset here, if you can have a civil engineer and a civil contractor at the table that have had prior work history, etc., together, and you can get them at the table beforehand, it's going to save you money and time. No, I don't care how you slice it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. It comes back to I can engineer it all day long, but that is not the same as having to put the pipe together in a trench when it's raining or it's butt freezing cold.
or 125
or 125 degrees, and you think you're down there in the
pits of hell.
I guess hell or the Amazon rainforest, just depending on what day it is. I watched guys work under, especially under stress when we're doing certain things like cutting, capping live water mains or things like that, where you have to do it in under 4 hours, where we all of a sudden the city's under boil orders. If your team is not working together before we start the project, then it's not going to be successful while you're doing the project. Things are going to go wrong. They are going to go wrong. I can guarantee you that. And if you don't have smart guys that have done them before, then, you're not going to be able to deal with what goes wrong as you need to.
You need to be able to, as an ownership group, working in, especially if it's your first commercial development, you need to be able to trust your contractor and your engineer, because they're going to be, if you're coming out of the ground, not just tenant infill, not just whatever, if you're raw land, engineering it, designing it to whatever, work with them prior. Just share your ideas prior as we're moving along. It's so much I keep saying so much easier, but it's so much more effective.
It's not, I was going to say, it is not easy.
It's not easy.
Saying
the civil world is not, there's nothing easy about what we
there's
do.
Nothing easy about what that's one of my biggest frustrations, is everybody thinks that they can be a civil engineer or they can be a civil contractor.
Try it.
Yeah, it's like, I'd say try it, but I'm not going to go out there and buy a backhoe or a track hoe and try to lay pipe. That's not going to happen because I don't know how to do that.
Agreed. Vice versa.
And you're not going to go out there and get a permit from the health department to put sewer pipe in the ground.
Oh, sir.
But when we come together and work together, then we're successful.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It really is. To some of the projects that we have ran together that have run so smooth. And then there's some other projects we've ran that haven't been so smooth.
Well, we learned from those, though, right? We learned, we adjusted, and we did better.
We did, and it's not about the mistakes you make; it's how you handle them.
Yeah. I will never forget. I'm gonna tell them myself.
Okay. I love it.
The 10-story building right over here, just north of us. Yep. This is hot. The cooling towers are sitting on top of what used to be a main 600 kV transmission line for Carrier Electric. We made a mistake. Fortunately, it was, it got rectified and it wasn't a big deal. But Mrs. Hunt said that thing right there. She said, everybody makes mistakes. We're human, but how you handle it is what defines you.
100%. And so anything underground, you are going to make mistakes. You're going to run into errors. Yep. It's unavoidable. It's all about how you handle that, take that information, get it to the right people, and keep the project moving is absolutely key.
Yep.
Absolutely key. So moving on. Well, we're kind of already there. Lessons from major projects. And I know you've got one. I've got one, and I'm going to share that. I had a pipe laser. This is not too far from here, but I have since you told on yourself, I'll tell on you anyway. Yeah, I figured you would.
I was going to work this one in anyways.
I figured you would, but I was just a restaurant not too far from here. I was actually brought in by the general contractor behind another utility contractor to rerun the sewer line. We got it reran in the time management. We went to go and test it. It passed a camera, and there's several. The city of Rogers here, not to go too far off of the weeds, is very, very particular about their sewer testing requirements, etc. that need to be met. I met every one of them except the flow line shots, and basically Daniel sent a survey team out there and shoot either end of the manhole where your pipe is flow line into the manhole, and basically take a difference of slope and tell you if you're meeting the legal, etc. Well, I was not, and I was nowhere close, but 6-inch at 0.16. Now I'll never forget that day. Ben Surratt, your, I guess, lead inspector.
He's our lead field man.
We started out at a golf course when we were 16, years and years and years ago. But I remember calling him, and he would not answer. And I've got concrete trucks dang near ready to pour, and I pull up, and he's there, and you're there. And I was like, oh, no. Oh, no. If you're here, this is a big deal. And so he said, you might want to sit down. And I sat down on that curb, and you told me I had to rerun that entire stretch of line. You guys got to understand there's 2 restaurants. I'm going right up between the corridor. I did this side, water line. I had to go up underneath all of the effectively active utilities that we're already using for the other restaurant. It was a nightmare. One of the biggest mistakes I've ever to this day, but at the same time, one of the best lessons I've ever learned. And we got it done in the next 10 days, and we poured concrete, moved on. But it was a big deal then.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, that was a brand new pipe laser for you.
I rented it.
Yeah, that's right. It was a rented pipe laser. You had picked it up for that job, and had forgotten to click the one switch over from feet per foot to percent of slope.
It's little errors like that piss away tens of thousands of dollars.
And I remember you and I and Ben out in the parking lot with that stupid pipe laser shooting at the target, trying to figure out why it was reading wrong. And I finally picked that pipe laser up. I go, Cy, you don't have this thing set up. You don't have this thing set up percent. And we flipped it over, figured it out.
And you walked away. I went to work.
I walked away, and you went to work. But I mean, I will say, everybody I tell, I was like, I went down that manhole. I looked down that pipe. It was perfect. I mean, it was perfect. There were no bellies in it. There was nothing in it. Water flowed just fine, but it didn't meet the minimum requirements. And I knew that day, because that might have been the second job you and I worked on.
Yeah, truly met. Yeah,
after the disaster the first one was.
Yes.
But I walked away from that saying, well, I now know Cy can lay pipe. I know for a fact that he can lay pipe, and he can lay it right. We just made a mistake on the pipe laser. So it wasn't. I mean, it's an honest mistake. You probably were not the first person to make it. Definitely not the last.
No. But I will tell, the relationship I gained out of that moment and that mistake that I made and how I handled that mistake, I think obviously added value to this relationship moving forward, as you saw me take one directly on the chin and go, oh my God, is he going to leave me hanging as this restaurant? You know, as you're dealing with the client, hey, what do you mean you're sewer guy? What are you said to bring this guy in? And he, well, it can get crazy, but the major project, you've done a lot of work in Fayetteville.
Done some, yeah.
You've done, that's true. You guys have, how many offices do you guys have?
We have a bunch now. We've got 8 or 9 offices. I can't even keep track of them all. We're spread out all over Arkansas, and then we've got an office over in Oklahoma City as well.
Really? I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that. I knew of Hot Springs, etc. Obviously, Northwest Arkansas is kind of Rogers, Bentonville, your specialty. Speaking on the, going back to the drone, I made a little comment here that I wanted to go back and when you were speaking about the 3D mindset, you mentioned you had a 3D mindset. It's so funny you say that. The way we view things, you know, speaking from a drone looking down, me and you know, have to look at it underground, 3D mindset. This runs here, this goes here, perpendicular, parallel, 10 foot, etc. Go everywhere in our minds are like that. Has that always been a thing for you?
I will say I was a fairly early adopter when the ability to start drawing in 3D happened. You know, I remember, I don't know, 2000, probably about 2002, 2003, when AutoCAD started really giving you the ability to draw in 3D. I started drawing in 3D and engineering 3D because I realized it made my life easier in the long run preparing the plans, but I could also look at things in conflicts, and you would be surprised, especially on subdivisions, how many people forget that when you're laying a sewer pipe, you need to look at those service lines because you got your storm pipe here, you got your sanitary pipe here. People forget the service line comes off at a 45 degrees and then it has to be laid at not 1%, it's actually 1.08%. It's what is it, a 16th inch of or 8th inch per foot or whatever it is. And it's not, and if you don't get those lines at the right elevation, that service line is going to T-bone that storm line, and it happens all the time.
All the time.
And everybody's sitting there going, now what? And it's like,
yeah.
So you have got to look at those conflicts, and you got to be looking at those with 3D, because if you don't, you're going to miss it.
It's funny. I just threw up a short video on YouTube 2 days ago. Sam had brought me up into the dozer, speaking on, not near the conflicts here, but basically primary line, looking from the dozer's perspective. I'm sitting here, here's his dozer, here's my set of prints showing me talking through this project, and I'm looking at the ground, and I got a ditch open here, pile of crap here, inlet box open here, road edge exposed, and it's unbelievable to see, like you mentioned, just in 2 decades.
Yeah.
We're here. We've got fully auto hydraulic dozers where a guy just basically from your CAD model, I can take your CAD, touch up, etc., get quantities, turn around. I can almost beat a model.
Yeah. And
then from the time I input them to the time I get them to be ready to do the project I've cut that in drastic. So speaking in the 3D mindset, tell us what 2D was like beforehand. How much did you deal with that beforehand?
Oh, I mean, it was, you guys have all seen profiles and stuff like that. I remember literally having to hand calc out the grade line on a profile. For every profile we had, I would literally draw the proposed grade every station.
Oh my gosh!
So I could figure out to make sure the storm pipe wasn't going to come out of the ground or the sanitary sewer line wasn't going to come out of the ground. Make sure I had the manhole rim elevations right. So I would hand draw all that so that a CAD technician could then go draft that. But everything was done in 2D. And then, of course, if I came back and changed something on the grain plan, and I didn't remember to go back check that, then we'd have errors out in the field. And so, in today's world where everything's in 3D, and if you make one change, you come right over here and look at what the impact was over here on this project or on this part of the project or wherever. We didn't have any of that.
That's unbelievable. I mean, back to the project management standpoint, I mean, running a project back then was time of a project. I mean, as it drastically dwindled, seeing a lot larger scale projects. Obviously, I understand now what age we're in now, but back from 2002 to 2012, I mean, you must have saw how these projects were just turning over so much quicker.
Yeah. So if you take, you take the permitting and review process and set that aside, and you just look at plan preparation from the time you start to where you're ready to go to construction. You can do it so much faster now than you used to be able to do it because, everything was literally drawn by hand and it was 2D. And if you made a change, you had to go back and change everything. And now, we make a change and it automatically updates everything. And I can, if we make a change out in the field, I can just issue to you guys now just a real quick little
snippet
and a new CAD file, and we're back working. 20 years ago, I had to reissue an entire set of plans.
20 years ago, it doesn't even seem like that long ago. Yeah. And it's just crazy, but totally switching gears on you if you don't mind. The one thing I've got to say that I have seen you do so well is being from a white collar standpoint in the civil engineer, and I know you probably don't like that, but at the same time, you manage, like you referenced your surveying crew. Ben's a blue collar guy. He came from the contractor side, and I know a lot of these guys. How do you manage such a broad team of diverse folks from all walks? I handle my guys completely different, and they're all just blue collar guys. You've got two different ends of the spectrum.
You have to set your ego aside, and it's hard to do. And I'm not perfect at it. My ego's gotten in the way many times. I think if you ask most people, they'll tell you that. Everybody always says, "I've heard of you," and I'm like, "Oh, hope it was all good." And I know it isn't. I know there's some infamy there, but no, you have to check your ego. I'll never forget. I don't think you ever met Larry Markley. No, he was the guy that was kind of in charge of our inspectors before Ben, and he was another blue collar guy. And I'm a young, fairly confident white collar engineer, and he pulled me aside one time and he said, Daniel, you ought to just listen to the guys in the field, just hear them out. Don't just step in and say, nope, do it this way. He said, you should listen to them. They have good ideas. And he's right. The guys that are willing to get up before sunrise, get in the mud, and go home dirty to their families know what they're talking about.
Most generally.
Most generally. Maybe not their first manhole that they ever poured.
That's right.
But at least by their 15th manhole, they figured a few things out, you would hope.
Yes, sir.
So, it comes back to, like I said, communication and just a willingness to have a dialogue and look at everything from everybody's point of view.
That's spot on. Relationships, I speak.
Yes.
Number one thing here.
Yeah.
And it's, you probably are just like myself. You probably have an open door. Hey, we got something to say. Yep. Come on in here. Let's have this conversation. If you've got a problem with so-and-so, let's go get them. Let's have it out.
Yep.
But I just wanted to know a little bit difference there between the college folk and more of the blue.
I'm pretty sure I cussed you out before. And I know you've cussed me out before. So, but, here we sit today as friends having fun and talking about it.
That is the blue collar world. I know more guys. It's in the blue collar sense that'll sit there and shake your hand. Your best friend as soon as they get to lunch. They're speaking real bad about you,
Yeah.
But speaking on those blue collar guys, you have such a wide experience, genre, and wisdom in this world. What can you say? And this is kind of the running question here of the show. What's a takeaway for the blue collar worker that is just stuck in the mud? Whether he's a foreman that you can see potential in and wonder why he's there, whether it's just a ditch hand listening to this, trying to figure out what's his next step, or a business owner that is struggling to have a conversation with you. What for that guy?
Oh, we've talked around it. We've talked about it. And I'll tell and we're talking about the construction world, right?
Yes, sir.
You as a construction person, whether you're the guy in the trench or you're the business owner, if you go into the mindset of I'm going to cover my ass no matter what, you're not going to be successful, and people are not going to want to work with you. The phrase that many contractors like to use, but quite frankly, this I guarantee is going to get them into issues, is when they say, "Well, I just built it per the plans." And the engineer, the owner, is going to look at them and say, "Well, why didn't you ask the question? Why didn't you do it?" And it comes back to effective communication. It doesn't matter if it's a blue collar job, a white collar job, or anywhere in between. If you want to be successful, you have to be a communicator. You have to be able to communicate effectively. And it doesn't matter if it's reading, writing, or speaking, whatever it is. Effective communication is the key. And like I said, it's the other side of it though is just an attention to detail. And be willing to work hard. I'm always impressed when I see the guy out in the field who is working hard, getting after it, doing whatever it takes to make it happen. I can tell on any project, doesn't matter which one it is, I can tell you within a week the superintendents that I'm going to like and the superintendents I'm not going to like, just by how they interact with the other guys in the field, whether or not their boots are clean. By the way, I like your nice, dirty, scuffed up boots. And I can literally tell within a week if it's going to be a successful project or not. Everybody remembers Jimmy Jones, I think.
Oh, yeah.
My gosh.
In this area, for sure.
For sure. Jimmy actually taught me a lot. I'll never forget. One time he told me, I forget where we met at, and we get out of the truck, and he's going to look at me, and he goes, "Man, I'm glad to see you got dirty boots on." He goes, "I can tell that you get out in the field and that you get out and talk to people." And, you can say a lot of things about Jimmy, but Jimmy and I, we did the same thing. We talked it out, and we figured out a lot of stuff in the field and made it work. That's why we're here. Jimmy did build a lot of the original subdivision here, and he and I did it together out here standing in the dirt.
So it's really the only way to do it.
It is the only way.
The communication I speak on, but it's not just communication. It's clear, effective, direct, intentional communication. Don't be if you're going to write an email and you need a response, don't be all around the bush and here and there and legal beagle. If you're trying to get through it, they need direct information so they can move. I need direct information, I can move. So if I'm needing direct information, why do I give all these indirect questions?
Yeah.
And
we wouldn't have gotten that 10-inch sewer line in the ground out there on that apartment project last year if you and I had gotten on the phone and talked at least 2-3 times. And
100%.
I know we met in the field at least.
And that was back when I had my project manager, and he brought that to me, and I saw these slopes and everything else. Yep. And I went and I started freaking out, and I'm like, "Are we sure everybody knows?" And we talked about it 2 or 3 times, and we did. We got it in there.
And how many fiber optic lines did we find? I mean, we want to talk about, good grief, everything that could go wrong on that. And we're working in a corridor. I mean, it was so stinking tight because you got a 3-story building here and you got a roadway here. And I mean, if we hadn't talked in the field and before we started and while it was going, and worked at it as a team, we'd still be sitting here today without that stupid job not being done.
100%. And that was was tricky. Not just the grade, not just the pipe, but it was 18 and a half feet deep, double stacked trench box right on the edge of a crown road that eventually will get replaced. But it has some pretty steep curvature anyways, but there's school traffic right there too.
Yeah.
And I was so nervous being that deep, but honestly, it moved very well. I'm so glad. And not only that, I want to point out on that project, me and you had a conversation pre-contract.
We did.
And we actually saved the ownership quite a bit of money there on that project by a suggestion I had. And then I spun around and I forget her name. Big shout out to your engineer.
Oh, Libby.
Miss Libby. Yeah. Miss Libby a shout out because she is very quick on, and anybody, Allie, Carr, anybody that we deal in y'all's office has always just been quick, fast. But I forget where I was going there, but Miss Libby, on that specific project, I brought up to her, hey, these manholes, can we get these manholes? Basically we just slid them down 60 or 80 feet and shortened the run up, but we brought the manhole, an 18, 19 foot manhole, 40 foot apart. They were going to be in the road, and we moved them over in the green space, and we worked together to save the customer a crap ton of money.
Oh yeah, it was 6 figures.
Well, it was the other sewer line that we actually, between two sections, that Dylan, my estimator, came to me and he said, hey, this doesn't make much sense. What do you think here? If we just stop this here, is that not just eliminate? He's like, I know we're screwing ourselves here, but it ended up really, that was a good portfolio piece for us doing the junction south and north. It worked out great.
It did.
And we moved quick on it. I wish, speaking about GPS, I had a little bit of altercation with our GPS based rover and learned some mistakes there and had to adjust a hydrant here and there. But other than that, we've really adapted to those. But do you have any other something you would like to address for the audience while you've got through here before we move?
No, it's seriously, don't be offended by an email or a text message. Be willing to work together. I can't say it enough. Teamwork. That's why you and I are successful. That's why we work well together. That's why I like working with you, because it's a team approach. It's not an adversarial approach.
No, never.
And if you're adversarial with your contractor or with your engineer, you're not going to be successful. Your engineer's going to be out to get you, or at the very least, they're going to be in the own mindset of covering their
protection, liability.
That does not.
You don't make money, I don't make money, and the owner don't make money.
Nobody makes money.
And if we would just get together, have a few sit downs, etc., it can go so far. Thank you so much for adding that point, because you are right. If we can have some effective, clear communication and not be don't take everything so stinking personal. I think is what you're trying to get at.
Exactly what I'm saying.
I agree with you.
We all have the same goal, and it's to finish the project and make money. I love being an engineer, but I would not do this every day if I wasn't getting paid. I love what I do. I love what we do. I do. But if we were not making money, there's no point in doing this.
I can't tell you how much I agree with that. And I have learned, a lot over the last 5 or 6 years, and sitting here, I have restructured my entire business over the last 10 months and trying for just that I know you can count numerous contractors that you watch, never go anywhere, just turning the wheels just to do exactly that, and they'll do it again next year. And I'm kind of tired of that game. Yeah. But at the same time, if I can make money, save the owner money, you make money, and we use this as a team, why would we not want to continue that? Yeah. Right?
And I will confirm this right now for your audience. Every engineering company out there has 2 lists. One of contractors they tell people not to call, and one of contractors they tell people to call. And the one list for to call is much shorter than the list of not to call.
100%.
So anybody who's wondering if that's true or not, it is absolutely true. I promise you.
I figured out really quickly, just to add on that, I figured out really quickly within the first 6 months of this whole utility game that these civil engineers are going to make or break you.
Yes.
And it's why? Well, who do they have to come for me to do a project? The owner has to go to you first.
Yeah.
And get it drawn so I can even show up. Who cares how many track goes you own and how many guys you got and how many tools you got? It don't make a crap.
No.
Because if you're not willing to communicate and come to the table and go, yes, absolutely, we can make this happen. And it's not, I hate to say this for my competition, but literally don't be so set in the ways. Mm-hmm. There's always adaptation of whatever the project needs to have done. Give it the attention it needs, both parties, and move forward.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to grow your business, you've got to be a partner and a team player, because if you're not, people are not going to call you. They won't do it, and they won't recommend you.
And literally the amount of people that I have call me nowadays because of the mistakes and the crap sandwiches that I've ate over the years, over and over again, of figuring out how to do things. Education's expensive, but experience is priceless. Right. And I've learned a lot of education over the years. I'm still learning to this day. And I think people forget that, is that once they get to a client, they know it all. Now, calm down your personal side. We're doing business here. And if you guys would get on the same page, like we've said 5 times in this podcast, your project's going to run smooth.
Yeah. And you just be kind of blew over it, but that is very true. We never stop learning. I will continue to learn till the day I retire on how this business is done. And if we go into it with that, I know everything. First of all, you don't, and you never will. Mm-hmm. So don't stop learning.
It's crazy that new age, and you may see this, but I call myself a little next gen or new age contractor, right? Because I've talked about it on this podcast. If you're thinking about a dirt guy or a utility guy, you're not thinking of the 33-year-old redheaded weirdo looking guy, that doesn't look like he's got enough age and credibility about him. You're normally thinking 55, 65-year-old man, overalls, boots, etc. Well, there has to be somebody to come in and replace that group of folks. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what we're trying to do effectively. Anyhow, I really appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah, I was excited.
I was very excited to have you in here and have this conversation, because this conversation right here will help so many individuals. Yeah. I know on my side, and I hope I get to hear an engineer go, well, this kind of opened my eyes a little bit.
I hope so too.
That's 100% the purpose and design of this. Cool. But I wanted to say thank you again. As you guys know, if you guys want any more insight of this, you can catch bluecollarbusinesspodcast.com, any of our streaming platforms. Thank you again, sir. Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Boom.
So much fun.
If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to give it a like, share it with the fellers, check out our website to send us any questions and comments about your experience in the blue collar business. Who do you want to hear from? Send them our way, and we'll do our best to answer any questions you may have. Till next time, guys.